Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Jeremiah and Jess. It's a three-person special. Thank you both for being on the show. How are you doing both today?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Well, before we dive into the subject, and I'm excited to have multiple viewpoints on the subject, quickly, Jeremiah and Jess, could you quickly give us some background about who you are, maybe how you got into marketing and what you love about content?
Sure. Jess Sukas, VP of Global Marketing at People 2.0. Been in marketing for, a long time. I actually tried my hand at sales and ran back to the lead gen side of the house. Didn't really want to, I didn't have it in me to do that all day. And content, love that it, the insights that it provides. I'm a data-driven decision maker. So having content out there first to give me insights on the audience or the work that we're putting out is probably my favorite part.
And I'm Jeremiah Aiken. I'm a content marketing manager here at People 2.0. I've been in marketing for a few years. Started with copywriting and then kind of took on content, copy, and comms here at People 2.0. And have a lot of background in healthcare and education too before that. I loved research in grad school. So I think, working for a company like People 2.0, where we have a much more complex service, the kind of research side of things is kind of exciting for me. And kind of figuring out how to say that in a way that is accessible to people and without losing the meat of what's going on there.
Well, again, thank you both for being on the episode today. Excited to hear about it. This is a subject I feel like everyone in marketing can relate to. This is something that everyone goes through, at least if you have more than like 10 people in your company. You're going to go through this, and I think there's always a lesson to be learned here. So today we're going to talk about, specifically when it comes to content, how do you collaborate with sales? And, obviously as a business, we'd all love to imagine we're all perfectly aligned. We all use the same resources. We're all using the right content. But sometimes as people have their jobs, they're doing their daily tasks, things kind of fall through the cracks. There can be silos, things like that. So just off the get-go, Jess and Jeremiah, how do you work with sales? How do you get them engaged with your content? What are some tips and advice for actually getting sales to utilize what you have, get feedback, and really start this collaboration cross-departmentally?
Yeah, I think so we've realized over the course of the last couple of years that a lot of it has to do just keeping the lines of communication open both ways, and starting from the very beginning to get them included and asking questions. This is what we're thinking. Does it align with what you need and what you're seeing in the market? We ended the year with, what do you want next year? What do you need next year? And then that helped us sort of create the map for this year of, if we didn't do X, Y, and Z, we didn't do our jobs, sort of thing. And then as we get to each one of those projects, first thing we do is sort of a kickoff discovery session of, what does this topic, what does this campaign, whatever, what does that look like for you? What are you hoping comes out of it? And even first thing that gets created, getting it in front of them.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that's been really helpful to me is one of the things we talk about, especially as writers in marketing, is being the second smartest person in the room when it comes to the product or service you're selling, right? So I really believe that starts with having the humility to admit when you're actually the dumbest person in the room, right? So like coming from a background that was
That's who I am in this conversation, just to set the stage.
You're not. So like coming from a background outside the staffing industry, I was working in mortgage before and then like doing something completely different in education, healthcare before. I had to start by asking really basic questions and showing a willingness to learn, just being willing to look dumb. And it really, but I found that it really fostered a lot of trust and open lines of communication with the sales team. Just like, look, I'm here to help you. I want to know everything that you know. Um, and allowed for a more cohesive strategy that takes into account kind of the nuances of the customer's needs, right? I'm not the one face to face with customers every day. I'm kind of in, as Jess calls it, like my little hole. It's not really a hole. I'm in Florida, so it's bright and shiny, but you get the idea. I'm just like behind my desk all day.
That's
Yeah,
quite the hole.
typing
Yeah,
things
it's a
out.
nice
Yeah,
hole.
it's a
Yeah.
very luxurious hole. Uh, but yeah, we got to trust the insights and experiences of the sales team, and just like trust that everyone's on the same page, and really, booking those calls and having those meetings, being willing to meet them where they're at, even creating SLP, and then kind of, if maybe they don't want to fill out the forms for a content request, being willing to fill that out for them, talk through the form with them, or just kind of having some flexibility with that has been really helpful.
Yeah, Simon Sinek once talked about, I think, his days as a consultant, and he showed up to like a board meeting, a bunch of executives, and some contractor was presenting something. It was really complex, and they had spent a ton of money on it. And the contractor's like, "Anyone have any questions?" Simon Sinek was like, "Hey, I know I probably shouldn't ask, but I have no idea what you just talked about." And he asked all the questions he could. And then after that consultant left, everyone in that meeting, high ranking people, every single one of them said, "Thank you for asking the questions. I had no idea either." And he's like, they're going to spend all this money and have a report, and no one was going to know what to do with it because no one wanted to look
Yep.
dumb. And I think the smartest people leave their pride behind and ask the million questions. You'd be like, okay, I got to ask one more question because I still don't know what that acronym means. Or I don't want you here. Or, okay, if I gave you this, does that work? And so I love your approach. I think that makes perfect
Yeah, and it
sense.
really gives us a lot of room to unpack piece by piece each part of an argument, and then really kind of rearrange it in a structure that's more adaptable to content.
The sales team's probably the other way as well. So we're about to launch a campaign, and they've even come to the table and been like, "Can you walk us through this? Because we know you guys have worked really hard on it. We want to put just as much effort in getting it out there and using it, but we have a bunch of questions." So before launch, we also always have it's parts of our team will go out and have meetings with the sales reps, like, okay, we're about to launch this thing, here's what it means, here's how you could use it, and that sort of thing. So it's both sides of the table needing to be able to ask the questions, us for development and then them for actual use.
And we've got really great support from leadership on that too.
Oh yeah.
um,
Mm-hmm.
especially recently, really working as one team, one
Yeah.
go-to-market team has been really
Yes,
important.
absolutely.
Well, an amazing job with the collaboration. I know if you have a sales team that's comfortable coming to you, asking questions, really saying, how do I get the most out of this? That means there's a strong bridge that you've built across the board. So that is something, I think that's a litmus test for anyone listening. If your sales team doesn't ask you questions about a new campaign, they probably aren't getting everything they could out of it, and they probably don't trust you enough for them to potentially look stupid and ask questions that they should or shouldn't have known before.
And I'll promise you, it was not built in a day. We have been building that relationship for a very long time.
We are a big company, and we have a lot of other people doing a lot of other things in different regions, right? So we've got a lot of cultural differences. We've got a lot of other pieces of companies from growing very
Mm-hmm.
quickly over the years. So it's been a journey to get everyone kind of on board, and we're still on it. But
Yeah.
I think we're going through some other changes right now that I think people are coming along with too. And yeah.
It looks like you might be a remote company, and most businesses are at least somewhat remote, if not hybrid. How do you approach the relationship in a remote kind of environment? I know in the past, I worked in office. If I wanted to, deal with the sales floor, I walked 10 feet in one direction and I started talking to
Yeah.
people. How do you collaborate in a remote environment to build those relationships when it might be a little bit harder than in office?
Yeah, and not only so we're fully remote, we're also global, so we have time zones to worry about. So for example, we've started to do quarterly all hands, start of every quarter. We have marketing and sales all on a meeting. We do one in the morning to get first half of the Americas and the EMEA team. We get the exact same meeting set later on in the day to get the second portion of the Americas and the APAC team. And it is here's what happened in the last quarter, here's how everything netted out, and then here's what's coming in the next quarter, so that they have sort of insight going into it. We have Teams channels, which Jeremiah spearheaded getting a lot of that set up so that we can get on the fly feedback, because it's like death by meetings in a remote environment, honestly. So any way we can not have a meeting, we will. So we've tried to just start consolidating as much as we can as well. And then like the pre kickoffs and the postmortems on all of the things has definitely helped. That it's almost like open office hours. Like, we're going to be in this room talking about how things went. If you're available, come on in. But I think that the Teams collabs have definitely made a big difference.
I never actually heard of the dual repeating meetings, and that makes perfect sense. I mean, that also shows a lot of respect to people. And other times it's like, hey, our meeting's at this time. I'm sorry, that's 2 a.m. for you. Like, you got to deal with it, but the respect of, hey, we respect you. So if you're in these time zones, here's when you meet versus you. Just hats off. That's really, really cool. I think that probably goes a really long ways in your relationships. Really smart idea.
Yeah, even the all hands and having that like be a deck that everyone works on together, and then we kind of break that out in 3 different regions. So that's
I love it.
Yeah.
So also logistically, how do you really, on the requesting and the feedback and the analytics and the usage with remote, with Globo, like, I'm sure it's something you've thought a lot about. But what are like the logistically, day in and day out, the tools or the things you've built to align everyone around content, from distribution to, amplification to analytics, things of that nature? How do you manage that all?
It's been hard. So when I first came on, taking on a bunch of different stuff and getting to know this company, getting to know the industry as well. We had, I had not worked for a global company before, never worked for staffing industry before. Plus, we had a lot of business specific jargon that we were using. So a lot of it has been, again, that communication with sales and collaboration with outside teams to refine our buyer personas. So we divide our market segments into 4 practice areas. Each of those practice areas had like 2 buyer personas, and then another one had a third one. So we had 9 in the B2B space, plus we were adding B2C space, and that exploded from like 2 buyer personas to 4. So like in the last year, I had like 13 buyer personas that I had to get to know.
That's not a lot of buyer personas at all. That's, yeah.
When you're one writer, so it's been, again, collaborating with sales and then kind of narrowing those down to have the buyer personas correspond to the practice areas. Another complication was that our service, we basically offer 2 services, but what they allow different customers to do differs, right? So really defining that as this is why we're dividing into different segments has been really helpful for us. And then looking at like, okay, then we really want to talk about our value, right? What we enable them to do in each of these 4 segments.
I love it.
Has been really helpful. So it's like just really kind of looking at all the complexity, breaking it down to its simplest parts, and then compressing and simplifying.
Very cool. Love it.
The foundational work there was so important because it got everybody on the same page, and we're all sort of speaking different languages, talking to different people. And then once that sort of everybody's like, yep, that's our ICPs, that makes sense. There aren't 200 of them, there are 5, or whatever the case may be. We were then able to, with the marketing operations side of our department, create forms and SOPs for sales to go in self-service and request campaigns or content or what have you, and then select from drop downs those, like, who are you trying to target, which then makes writing the content a whole lot easier because you have the topic, who they're trying to target. Then it's just sort of, putting some marketing pizzazz on it at that point.
I love it.
I finally know my audience.
Well, and it's really cool. I bet all the time if someone's requesting a form, it's like, oh shoot, I didn't actually think about who this was for. I got to think through this a little bit more. I gotta ask myself some questions before I request something.
Jeremiah, we'll get onto a meeting and he'll pop the form up and we'll do it live with the person who's asking for it if they were not quite sure, especially when it's their first time requesting content. So you'll inevitably get a new sales rep. They've never done this before. They've never worked with marketing in this way. So we'll walk them through the first one. And then once they realize oh, I could do this, then you'll get them off and running after that. But the first time, it's again, fear of looking dumb. You don't want to get it wrong. Easy way is just do the first one with them.
It was just a matter of breaking it down into what I know, coming from education, looking at that research background. Okay, what's my basic outline here? If I were, teaching this to a college freshman and I wanted to simplify writing their paper for them, I mean, our people are very smart, well-educated, much more educated than a college freshman, right? But, I even ask them for very specific sources because again, I'm not the market expert, I am a marketer, right? So I want to know what's authoritative, what sources people actually rely on within the industry, and I have them give those directly to me so that I can pull from something that's accurate and reliable.
Now, one final question, because it's coming close to a close. This goes by quick. Do sales ever source thought leadership through their relationship with customers or by themselves? Do you ever actually, besides the requests, actually generate content through the sales team as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually just did another call last week asking for people to provide content, not just, curated, I found this, I like it, but actually participate in the content with us, put their name on it, that sort of thing. Case studies and all of that's always going to be a top request from sales. So working through how to get that across the finish line. Definitely.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I love that, you have so many subject matter experts, and if you've got sales reps that have been there for a long enough time, they're becoming subject matter experts. And I think sometimes we overlook that. So I think that's really cool. You use that resource.
Yeah. And you never know what they know, right? I could suggest a topic and it's crickets, and then you'll get a sales rep be like, hey, I know this thing about this one topic.
It's just knowing when and how to catch them and how to get that information as efficiently as possible because they're all so busy. Right.
Yeah.
Well, this conversation could go on for ages. I have so many questions. This is super cool. Maybe we'll have you back on for another episode. Jeremiah and Jess, thank you for the time. If anyone wants to continue the conversation, how can they reach out and connect with each of you?
We're both on LinkedIn. It's probably one of the easiest ways to connect, right? Especially nowadays.
Love it.
I've got my portfolio up on jeremiahakin.com, and LinkedIn also works. I've got a few links in my portfolio.
Very cool. Very cool. And we'll link to both of your profiles in the show notes. Again, thank you both so much for the insights. This was awesome. Appreciate everything, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.